So it's only going to be recorded from now. So you see, it was not so bad.
Yes. It's not going to go on the YouTube with all.
Oh God. One never knows what one is doing now. You don't know anymore, private, public.
True that, yeah. Yes, Sonam, all yours.
I can't actually see my own self in this camera because I don't know. I don't know if I have to adjust it further or closer or whatever. Because, yeah, there I see. Because
when we start a screen share, maybe that's when your screen goes.
You know, yeah, it's just that. And this rapid urbanization, then we are bound to be also creating we are bound to create social segregation. Architecture, we know how to what extent it contributes to environmental, social and economic disruptions that have occurred in our times. Materiality of architecture itself, for me, it's problematic. All the negative impact you see now of a certain kind of architecture, you know, of what I called the commodified version of housing. We see all the affordability issues, we see, you know, all the environmental issues, we see the social segregation. So we already can see the impact. You see the direct relationship between architecture and those sustainability issues under these three categories.
Hello and welcome to a bright Saturday morning.
Organization, then we are bound to be also creating a very...
Yes. Hello and welcome to a bright Saturday morning where we will discuss sense and sensibility with architect Anupama Kundoo. I'm Sonam Ambe, and today let us explore the interpretations of architecture as a response and a responsibility. My co-host Arushi Punnala from BNCA College in Pune has joined us on behalf of NASA India. We are happy to see the support from the fraternity, and special thanks especially to colleges for taking the initiative of broadcasting this at your auditorium and to share it with your students. This session is about architectural social responsibility. And what better way to start it than talk about the 1700-kilometer journey from Calcutta to Delhi, taken on foot by the founder of our organization Ethos, Geeta Balakrishnan. On the 13th of February, Geeta started a walk for a cause, the cause of architecture, our cause together. The intent was simple, to take the power of design to the masses and spread more awareness about the field of architecture. While walking through the narrow paths along villages, to traversing national highways, from the soot-stained roads near the coal mines to the highs and lows of the northern hills, the night walks in urban centers to experiencing the twilight every day, Geeta celebrated life with the people she met on her journey and explored their stories and engagement with their habitat through various interactive sessions. Learning from communities, cities, institutions, organizations, climatic conditions, landscape, built and unbuilt environment, formal and informal settings helped the 2-decade-long efforts of Ethos come a full circle. I take this opportunity to welcome Geeta Balakrishnan to initiate this talk, focusing on the environmental and social responsibility of an architect by sharing her journey and vision with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonam. Thank you, Arushi, for being here, and a formal word of gratitude to Anupama for joining us. Anupama, we've broken all kinds of barriers with your session. I think the number of registrations, and I'm sure the participation is only going to go up. Live streaming happening at many colleges. So yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm just going to share screens and yeah, shares. There's no sound, but in any case, let me know when you can see my screen.
Can see.
Yeah, so here we are. Thank you, Sonam, for giving that little romantic introduction into the walk that I undertook. And I'm not going to take very long. I'm just going to show you 4 or 5 slides. and talk about what happened along the way a little bit. This was the last day. In fact, I crossed over to Delhi on the 23rd of April, which is when I completed the journey between Kolkata and Delhi. But we did a symbolic walk between Rajghat and Red Fort on the 24th, where there were a bunch of architects, senior, young ones, students of architecture, students from schools, as well as people from different walks of life who joined me on the last mile. The youngest was, I think, Sonam's young son, who was about 4 years old, and the oldest was, I think, my mother, who was 84 years old, who walked the last 3 kilometers. And then, of course, the team got together too. So it was quite an exhilarating experience. And I think we as Ethos have decided to designate 24th of April as a day for architectural social responsibility. It might be the 24th April, or it might be the last Monday of April. That's something we're discussing on. And we'd really love it if all the colleges that are in here today join hands and make that successful. And it doesn't mean we're going to be only doing things on the 24th or on that Monday, but there is going to be a run-up of events, run-up of activities, which we will keep sharing with you as in when we curate them. So this was a beautiful and a memorable day for me, and I wish many of you had been with me, but we're planning to do lots in different parts of India, and I'm sure you'll join hands and legs wherever we curate those activities. Like Sonam was saying, we've completed 20 years, and I think this really doesn't need too much of explaining, but Ethos has been working as an outside the classroom platform for colleges, for young architects who'd like to continue their learning journey, as well as for senior architects now through ASEDGE. We are curating content. And there are a lot of activities for this year as well. So this was in a slide encapsulates certain numbers. It was 1,700 kilometers in all. It was 2,550,000 steps. We did 7 states. I started from West Bengal, walked through Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, and New Delhi, Delhi, of course. And 849 villages, towns, and cities fell on my route. And this was 70 days and 350 hours. While these are all numbers, I think Sonam captured some of the emotions that I experienced along the way. It was extremely beautiful to be buttonholed, stopped by people along the way. I stopped to engage with them on my own. Women's groups, children who were actually the the youth as well, preparing probably to join the police or the armed forces, engaging with them, engaging with women, engaging with farmers. So it was such a rich journey that this slide does not necessarily capture the spirit of it. But yes, it captures the daunting task of walking high and low and through all kinds of terrains to meet my targets and goals. We did various things. I carried flashcards with me. I carried presentations with me on different issues to help build conversations. There was a presentation called Mera Ghar, which I would take, and it also has flashcards, and put them on the table while I was sitting on the floor doing my stretches at a chai shop, and people would gather around me and want to hear more. We had little kids with whom I asked them to draw their dream home, sketch their dream home and color it. And we also showed them presentations on understanding what a home is from nature, working with communities, talking to communities, understanding issues, understanding how the dynamics of a community is also something that I did along the way. Inclusivity was a very important part of what I wanted to do, and hence, like Sonam mentioned, walking at night, walking during twilight, to understand how comfortable our cities are, how safe our cities are for different segments of our population, is something that one did. Design as a career is something that we'd like all of you to engage in as well through our certain initiatives that we are going to launch very soon, where I went to schools along the way, including my own school, which is in Delhi, and talked about what design and architecture as a career mean. And believe me, not everybody knows what architecture is. And as I walked, I think the question to who is an architect or who does your plans drew complete blanks in most of the places. This is MIT's Gwalior. where I interacted with students of architecture, but I did it in many other colleges as well along the way. With BIT Mesra, I stopped at the Bundelkhand University, Jhansi joined us at Raragram. So there were many colleges that joined me along the way. Construction workers are going to become a very important part of what we do at our cause. I think it's important. They are really the backbone of our fraternity and what we do. And there is a huge chasm between the architect, the mind and hand that designs, and the ones that construct. And I think that that barrier really needs to be bridged. Like I said, common building practices is something that I explored, and believe me, it was more receiving than actually giving. This journey was more about receiving and learning than giving. Our team at the back end, as you know, put together a lot of activities, and many of these are going to continue to stay open. We are going to continue to have our course showcase, where we are going to exhibit works of social relevance, be it students, be it architects. We have blogs. We'll welcome all of you to write for us. We did a lot of activities ourselves along the way. But what was very heartening was, of course, along the route, you can still see some activities here where I stopped. You can see Taragram, you can see SPA Delhi, you can see GL Bajaj University, Mathura. But what was really heartening was the activities that many colleges took on their own, in their premises or in their cities and towns. While I was walking my route, off route, many of you were engaging in your activities to make a difference. And that's something that really is the spirit of what we're talking about today as well. If we were to look at some of the colleges, I'd like to give a shout out to them and thank them. Bearies Design School in Mangalore, Bearies and Riva University, in fact, worked on design literacy at schools in their vicinity, while the N Sagar College of Architecture did an exhibition and tried to understand design for disaster relief. Symbiosis University, Pune, under the leadership of Gauri, Professor Gauri, conducted a marathon of sorts, a short run where many of the architects and students took part. BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore, did a wonderful interaction at Kabban Park, where they involved and engaged with the common people walking around in the vicinity, and kind of made an impact on them from the perspective of architecture. Sri University, who's also present here today, did a heritage walk, and I'm grateful to Rajkumar Nayak for leading there. KIIT School of Planning and Architecture organized an art and architecture exhibition, which was very, very successful. And we mentioned Dayanand Sagar's community engagement. So these were beautiful initiatives, and I really welcome. There's going to be a lot more we are going to do, and I welcome all the other colleges also to begin their engagements in their respective cities and towns to make an impact. I think we've heard this being said, together we can, and I really believe together we can, and I think we should come together for this cause, and all of us should make a difference. This was again on the last day as we were walking, and I'd like to really end with this slide because it's Anupama's day, and I'd like her to really be engaging with you more. But I'd like you to, I think the team is also going to paste the link for this QR code, where we ask you a few questions on what, according to you, is social responsibility of architects and designers. And I think it's important for us to also understand your perspectives before we craft our journey, and hence this query to you. Thank you so much, and enjoy the interactions. And I leave it to Sonam and the team to take you forward through this day. Thanks again.
Thank you, Geeta. You have this unique gift of galvanizing your listeners. I would like to quote a poem that resonates with our thoughts after seeing this presentation today. Here it goes. We floor and roof, the brown shades of earth. We build as master builders, sometimes extending our egos into our creation without acknowledging the millions of hands and minds that joined in its making. The earth, a speck in the universe, where we create without understanding that to build is to be answerable to the land, the sun, the sky, the universe, the trees, the people around and within, all those who have contributed to its creation. This poignant verse was penned by architect Parul Zaveri, founder of Abhikram, when she donned the hat of a learner during our course on writings in architecture by Apurva Kostatta. Truer words have not been said about response to context and the responsibility of an architect. And we could not think of anyone better than architect Anupama Kundoo to share her experiences and lessons with the crowd today. I will request Arushi Punnalla, Zonal President, Zone 3, NASA India, to come to the screen to introduce Anupama.
Thank you, Sonam, for the warm welcome. The flipped classroom format for this lecture ensured we, the students, did our homework before the session. Architect Kundoo, the 4 videos shared by you gave us an insight into your personality, your work, your philosophy. It is my pleasure to introduce to all of you Anupama Kundoo. Architect Anupama Kundoo graduated from the University of Mumbai in 1989 and obtained her PhD from the Technical University of Berlin in 2008. Her research-oriented work, which began in Oroville in 1990, has produced people-centric architecture based on spatial and material study for low environmental effect while being socio-economically advantageous. Her corpus of work was recently displayed at a solo show titled Taking Time at the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art in Denmark through May 16, 2021. She has taught architecture and urban management at many foreign colleges, expanding her knowledge of fast urbanization and climate change related development concerns. And she was the Davenport visiting professor at Yale University in spring 2020. She is presently the head of urban design at Oroville and a professor at the Potsdam School of Architecture in Germany. She has received the 2021 Riba Charles Jenks Prize for her contribution to architectural theory, the 2021 August Perret Prize for Architectural Technology, and the German Sustainable Building Council's Building Since Now Worldwide Award. Her studios are located in Berlin, Germany, as well as Pune and Pondicherry in India. Architect Anupama's intensive study and experimentation with new materiality for architecture is the consequence of questioning basic assumptions and construction habits that mankind has accepted over the course of extensive industrialization process. She has sought abundance rather than scarcity by investing in human resources and human resourcefulness, such as inventiveness, time, talent, compassion, and a feeling of community. The act of building generates knowledge, and the information generated generates building in turn. Welcome, Architect Kundoo. Today's discussion has been curated by us from the questions that we've received by few participants from the course page. So my first question to Architect Kundoo is, your practice inspires optimism, innovation, and empathy. With many young and future architects in audience right now, I would like to ask you a very fundamental question to help us understand and see today's discussion from your lens. What is architecture according to you, and what does it influence or impact?
So, first of all, thank you for having me. I would like to commend Geeta's, relentless, pursuit of whatever she's, pursuing. And you watch, I've been watching ever since, the last 2 decades of, before our course, So I just want to say, like, it has been very inspiring for me to watch the last stretch of what you have just done, and somehow I am also motivated to walk. And I thought, in general, I've been using this phrase a lot: the time is to walk the talk. It's really symbolic to walk, because when you walk, you can think, you reflect, but it's a lot of things we are doing remains in the mind and doesn't
get translated into action.
Yeah, and therefore I'm sorry, I'm going to take a minute to just say hello to all of you, and thank you, Sonam, also for collaborating. It is with a great enthusiasm that I'm meeting you today. And I have suggested this kind of flip classroom approach, which I normally do, especially now that there is Zoom and all of this, that, I want to have meaningful exchanges, because, life is short. And when you meet people, it's good to remain alive and not have all our ready-made scripts and all those things. And I think everybody can, after a talk, sometimes you are stimulated and you start having questions. So I think it's much better that you do a little bit of research and think, what do you want out of the conversation, or wherever else, what do you want out of life? It's good to think before. Then when you meet,
you can have a more meaningful conversation. So like I said, I'm meeting you with a lot of enthusiasm because I don't have the chance to meet as many students who write to me and approach me, through Instagram and other social media. So I suggested this to Sonam, and I'm so impressed that you did all this homework and put in all the work, and I'm just here. At the same time, I'm happy that I don't have to give another monologue sitting in my own room and, listening to myself. So I'm very happy that I'm going to be listening to your thoughts. So your first question was, I already forgot the question, but I think
what is architecture to you is what she said.
Yes, and the second was the impact, right, of architecture.
Yes. What does it influence and impact?
Right. So I think the first, for me, the principle, like what is architecture? The way I understand it, architecture is the container for our lives, for our individual life, for our collective life, for our society. And it's a container that evolves over time. So because humans are not able to, like many other animals, live directly in the different geographical locations with different climatic conditions. Apart from other needs to defend ourselves, humans also need to regulate the climate and all that to survive and to thrive. And as we know, so many other, we are not the only ones who have to build shelter. Look, there are birds, there are bees, there are all kinds of insects, but also spiders. You see there's so much architecture happened through life already before humans even came in. So so if we don't build, then the earth is our habitat for all other organisms, and some organisms need to modify the habitat with their own work to be able to have shelter. So architecture is the background of we create spaces and we create boundaries. So we create we create voids that we can occupy. So the voids have to be porous so that we can exchange air and water, and get light and whatever conditions we want from the universe without blocking us off totally. But at the same time, the materiality of architecture comes into play because you need to define the voids with something. And what is the something? The something is wherever you are, you have something. If you have mud, you use mud. If you have, like birds also, I have collected in my exhibition in Louisiana, I called it the architecture of time, and I showed what I think architecture is. So there is architecture before there was life. So in matter, there is architecture. I've shown all the examples, how stones are formed, how caves are formed, how soap bubbles, and how matter, actually when matter, over time, matter manifests the invisible physical, the laws of the universe, like gravity. It is seen when matter has to withstand time. And then it has to take certain form according to its own properties. So I'm so sorry that I could fill the whole hour with one question, but I'm going to spare you that. But I think basically it's this very complex coming together between very philosophical, very, very primal, non-material needs for life to flourish, and the very concrete material needs, to hold that space. So just to complete the thought, so yeah, in that exhibition, there was, I sorted out the architecture of matter before life came in. You already see what stones do, what are their structures. Then the architecture of life, like how shells, how snails create shells, or how they are spiral in one direction and conical if you cut a section, and you see what every species does to create habitat. And our own organism, our bones, if you look at the flow patterns in leaves. It's very similar to our circulation system, arteries, veins. So there's the architecture of life that has an architecture. And then there's architecture of the mind, I called it, is when the human mind develops tools, and we make tools, and then we make things, and the things make us. So we make, like you make a brick mold, and after that architecture will never be the same, because now you can modularize it. And then you can, with the mind, you create all those steps to that. We create tools to be able to create shelter, and then the tools create who you are, because you start sometime becoming the tool of the tool, and so architecture is, for me, a thing that is so important and essential, but it belongs in the background, and the life stories belong in the foreground, never the other way around. Otherwise, it's like you're wearing a shoe that doesn't fit you, and your foot cannot grow, So that's how I would explain architecture. It's a container.
That's a very simple perspective to define architecture, as this all-containing container that shelters needs.
Sorry, I forgot to answer that other part, which I find very important. What does it impact? Who does it impact? Normally, it impacts life. It impacts the humans who will occupy it directly. If you live in a certain room or another kind of room, it affects you totally. It affects a child in what space you grow. It affects the people in what kind of cities they are raised. So how much social contact, how do you mediate, through the spaces, individual and social requirements. So it impacts all of us, and it impacts the quality of our life. If we do it badly, then it affects also the environment, and it affects other people badly.
That's very true. In fact, the psychology of design, or the impact of design, has been recently greatly discussed by many people. Now, from what is architecture, let us move to how to do architecture. That is the process of architecting itself. Actually, it's surprising that the process of doing a design is called designing, but there's no such verb to describe the process of doing architecture. What we do as architects is beyond just designing, right? So while describing this process, Anupama, you always insist on the importance of first principles that we've read from many interviews that you've given. In one of your interviews, you said that the user is always at the center of your design process. But how do you prioritize? You just now said that it's a container that takes into consideration the environment, the psychological needs, the emotions. So do the first principles change based on context or situation? Does form follow function, feelings, factors of the environment, fad, trends, technology? I think to just sum it up into a single sentence, if you could help the young architects in our audience understand who do we serve and how do we serve them?
I think the reason to have first principles, to have solid understanding of first principles, is that otherwise you're not even a designer. Because if you take design decisions, you take any decision, if you don't take it out of wisdom and a deeper knowledge and understanding, then you might take what you mentioned, fads, or you may, we have to be very careful. Our unconscious picks up a lot of what we think is how things ought to be done. If you don't pay attention, and if you don't take time to know things for yourself, you just go by hearsay. And it's astonishing to what extent people are not willing to question basic assumptions, and they just assume that what they see is how it ought to be done. That's why bad practice is repeated. I mean, everyone knows the way why bad practice is widespread. It's because you grow up in those spaces, you become numb, you just see that's how it is done. You don't even think. So every place I go, you notice what are the habits that people are repeating unconsciously. So I think knowing your first principles is a great liberation. And also you give society the opportunity to align to the original requirement. So for instance, many people will tell you, if you know your first principles, you know the laws of physics, and the building physics, and you know your engineering, you know certain things, then you go about somewhere and you notice that this is not the optimum use of this material, or this is that you get a better idea how to do something. But very often we assume it's a combination of our own maybe lack of confidence to try out and follow our own idea, and the fact that society is always trying to ask you to look backwards. Society is always, it's like there is inertia. You don't want to try out new things. But if you don't try out new things, even if something is working perfectly well, it needs to adapt, because the human being itself is in evolution. We are always evolving. And especially we in India, since I'm born, the population is 3 times. It's not a joke. It's a huge extra demand. So if you keep on perpetuating things that used to work for us long, long ago, but our reality is different. We have many more mouths to feed and the same amount of land. So if you don't know your first principles, you will try to, very nostalgically reproduce something. Even if it's good, it's not going to work. So I think you need to know things for yourself. You cannot just, and now what is more dangerous is a lot of people are mixing up human laws with natural laws. I mean, natural laws are, I would say we should surrender to the natural laws like gravity. I mean, you see a lot of projects where people don't want to respect gravity also, they assume that with all our software that certain things will stand. So we challenge climatic laws and the laws of nature, but people are afraid to challenge human laws, which ought to be challenged all the time. Otherwise, how will we progress? But so people are often mixing up building codes and habits with natural laws. We just don't, we have to think, we need time to think before you act.
I think that's a very important message that we send out to the students, especially in the audience, that when it comes to your how you want to be inspired, or who you want to be inspired from, always start with your first principles of what is important to you and the society at the current moment, and then move towards challenging the norm. And only through that you can actually make a difference in things that you're doing. Now, Anupama, what happens is that when you think of these ideas as an individual, like you or others who think alike like you, how do you transition from an individual having a set of ideas to a collective, to us as a fraternity thinking and moving in the right direction, like something like climate change, something like the act that we do for persons with disability? This is the society moving together in one direction. So how do you encourage the students to, from their individualistic first principles, then to come together as a collective and as the larger fraternity?
Yeah, I think, I don't actually see a contradiction between the individual and the collective. I've never seen that, because actually it's an illusion. Human beings, like many are like the bee colonies, or if you watch others or species, you watch, actually we are not so dissimilar. In fact, human beings, we need to parent the child for so much longer, because we cannot live without love and bonding. So, our species, we are actually a collective. Sometimes you undergo a specific education, and for a couple of years, you may think mentally that you are so independent, or your thoughts are your own and only your own. Actually, when we educate ourselves, we all learn, we discover the same laws. It's not like we, I mean, if you do any kind of either spiritual introspection, or if you do, go deep into research of some material, what is to be known is what is to be known. It's not that everybody will have, it's not that subjective. There are different expressions. That is subjective, that there are subjective aspects. I'm not saying not that there isn't, but the thing is, I think we are already connected. we sometimes in our mind assume we are on our own, but we are not on our own. I've always known, even when I've spent those years of solitude, not meeting so many people in my early years in Auroville, the first decade, I knew we are connected because look, right now, how many of us are connected? You were saying, what do we have to do? We don't have to do anything. Our natural tendency, I feel, is to be connected. See, like Geeta and you, Sonam, you asked me, you asked me to come because we are connected. That's why you even ask, and I asked back something to the students. We had not met, but we are connected, and we are resonating with something. So they have done that so much work to put all of these thoughts together. And I feel it, when I read the questions, I see we are all connected because these questions are not, it's not as if these are not our own, I do believe that I don't think the problem is about the collectivity. I think is not the problem. The problem is the individual is entertaining some illusion that they are on their own. The work will be much easier if we just take note of how much we are already aligned and connected, I feel.
I remember our conversation yesterday where you said that we need to move away from the competition that we feel towards each other, but towards collaboration. And this is one unique way of looking at it. You gave us a lot to ponder upon.
I think that was so beautifully said, Anupama, that we need to move away from believing that we're on our own, and we're actually, and if that's half the problem solved, if we believe that we're actually together, and not just in the fronts on the lines of architecture, but on so many other fronts as well. It would make so much more sense.
I love the name Our Cause, because everyone's cause is actually everyone's cause.
Yes.
The only time, will you ever look at that song, the Beatles, Imagine. Is there anybody who's going to say, oh, I don't agree with that?
Right.
Nobody's going to say. That's why it was popular. So there are people, we have to also understand where this trend comes from. If you go off totally on some trip, with your architectural, with your success, or with your, I don't know, if you have, sometimes if you become, you may go off on your own trip or whatever, if then you may alienate, but the natural stream of water is to go to the sea. All the natural tendency, I feel, that I never felt, that everyone asked me this question, how will you convince your client? How will you, I never worried about that, because I felt everything is going to go downstream, and anything you do, if it's good, it will not, there will be no resistance. The one resistance there will be is the people who want to keep a status quo and maintain the old. They will resist the new very, very aggressively and unconsciously, because there is a thing that the new makes you go out of your comfort zone. So there are a lot of people will resist. But other than that resistance, see, if a thing works better, why do I have to convince a client? I never worried about that. I used to be more worried, what if my thing gets built? Will I like it? And is it really, I never worried about, that whether, because, you do a thing, if it's good, people will like it. It's like the song, Imagine. If he struck the chord. So there's nobody who dislikes it, and sometimes we don't strike the chord, and then you do the next project and it's fine,
That is important, especially for the young audience to kind of consider and think about their transition from the individual and how collectively we could build our futures together. This is the first section of our discourse. If
one second, I just want to add, sorry, one little thing that I want to add, because I've been in, you talked about you quoted this collaboration instead of competition. I mean, seriously, I've been in juries and all kinds of, I meet a lot of important architects here in the West also. I'm all the time saying that, where did this competition come up, the tendency in the Western culture? It is considered to be, competition is a way I always say, go to the source. Why is there a competition culture? Because we want to achieve excellence. We want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to produce it, and the best thing gets, we want to, on one hand, improve excellence. On the other hand, we want to give everybody equal opportunity. But when I go to the juries, I'm talking about really high-end project juries or big prizes, and I noticed that, is it really an equal opportunity? Does a big office not have a huge more opportunity to invest that much in their models than a first starting up person? So are we meeting through competition? Is it really equal opportunity? And also, for excellence, I think there is some validity there, but is not also collaboration, if different architects complement each other, or if there is interdisciplinary, teams, won't that also raise the standard? So I'm not against competition. I hope the future will be not only by competition to achieve things, because if you do that, you are wasting so many resources. So many people are working so hard on projects, and there are so many real problems they could have put the same time towards and execute them. So I'm hoping to have another scenario. And I just want to say, it's not a utopian wish. I'm propagating this idea.
Yes, and we'll talk about that shortly, the surprise that we have for the audience in stream.
Yeah. Right.
So audience, this was the first section of our discourse today. The next section will look at various aspects of our responsibility. If you have any questions for Anupama, do type it into the chat box. We will start with social responsibility next. But before we go ahead, our audience may recall the email communication we shared with all registered participants about the ASEG membership giveaway. We are happy to announce that ASEG, under our cause, will be giving out ASEG memberships to 3 lucky participants. Just pay attention carefully and respond to the quiz based on today's interaction with architect Anupama Kundoo, and few other questions that we will test your argument with. It's just for fun. This quiz is hosted on Ethos Empower's website, and it's titled Argument SNS. It has also been mailed to all registered participants and posted in the chat by the team as well. Moving to the social responsibility, Anupama, during the Charles Cheng's award presentation, you had talked about people who work with their head and those who work with their hands. Even Geeta, during her entire walk, noticed this glaring gap in communication between the thinkers and the builders. The construction workers many times did not know what they were building. How do we reduce this gap? How do we start within the fraternity itself? Of the fraternity, including us, architects, designers, interior designers, all the consultants, to the contractors and the very last laborer at the site?
I think first of all, we don't have to be too much control freaks, I think, because when you try to, again, there is the assumption that some people have to think and then some other people have to only execute that. But we all know that nothing is made like that. No object, no tailor can stitch. You think a tailor can stitch without thinking one shirt? It's impossible. How much ever instruction you give, there will be even more decisions to be made, so much to be thought. And so I think I actually must say that maybe I didn't do too many years of that kind of practice when I started. So for me, it was very natural to not have this difference. And in fact, I call it the thinking hand. Because even when we draw, when you think, if you see that when you think without a paper or when you think with paper, your hand is also thinking and automatically solving some things. When you repeat when you have revisited various thoughts, it starts becoming reality, and you in your body, there is an embodied way of learning things. It becomes a part of you. And so I believe that we architects, even when you make models, how many of you will have experienced that you're changing the decision while making the model because something is intuitively, your hands are faster than while you do it, it shortcuts some thoughts you've had. So this same thing which goes on in our studio continues through the hands of every maker of everything. And I think to not take them on board is a mistake, because then you reduce the experience to only what you thought of. And I have not approached architecture that way, and I love the building site. And I think there is a little bit, to be very honest, we have a bit of the class system thing also there. Not only that we pigeonhole a bookish way of learning and then telling somebody how to execute. Of course, the responsibility lies with us, but as a choreographer, every person who plays the instrument is doing that part of the rendering of it, and so there is something to be just respected, and I don't think you can make any policies and new approaches and all that. You're saying, how can we bridge the gap? I think you can only do, I think most of those kind of questions, how can we have a better practice, or how can you have a better life? I think most of the answers are, you can't organize and have conferences about it and all that. You just can, each one can just shed some of your divisive thoughts, and that is so fast. You just, when you go to a site, first of all, if it's someone is the helper of a mason, that doesn't mean that whole day he's just carrying the bricks around, or she, mostly she. It doesn't mean they are not thinking. If you just take the time to talk, you will see what all they thought, but they are thinking and not allowed to act. They observe stupidities which they don't dare to say or point out. So I think psychologically we create a barrier. We go and we may behave in a position of a hierarchy, but there is a hierarchy of responsibility, but that doesn't mean that in knowledge there is no hierarchy. Everyone has a lot to give. The intelligence is in everyone. Actually, everyone has an intelligence, and it's a silly thing to not tap it, I think. Sometimes we don't tap it out of fear. I see even in architecture office, forget the building site. I know, so I have so many friends who will not let their interns give their opinion. I mean, let's face it, even in offices, because in homes, I see it, I'm a mom, I also know it can be uncomfortable when children don't approve what we do. And if we don't listen, I mean, that's the first thing. You can use your power and authority to dumb people down, or to just not let them be heard, so that you don't have to face an inconvenience. Now, what policies are you going to make for that? You can't do anything. You just have to be not afraid. You have to think that somebody else will only improve it. Somebody
Like you
else.
rightly said about making models, it's as students, when we go for site visits, we often strike conversations with the people who are working on ground. And as the conversation passes by, it becomes seemingly obvious that they have a line of thought of their own that they've developed with the years of experience that they have by working, in comparison to us as students, or the architects or the engineers we interact with as such.
Mm-hmm. True. If even I have had people in the office who are not architects, they don't have the block, they don't mind helping while making model if there's a, pressure. Anyone would be happy to help. It's we who feel that you don't have a course, you don't have a degree, you don't know about this and that. And often the things that they know about, we may not know about, So I think it's just a indoctrination that goes on during education, that
It's us forming a bubble around ourselves, sort of.
and insulating ourselves. Yeah.
After hearing your
By the way, can you tell me your name? I don't see your screen. I'm trying to find your window.
I'm Arushi.
Arushi. Okay, Arushi, nice to meet you. I'm happy
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
talk
So
directly.
glad to be a part of the panel today. So after hearing your response about the fraternity, I would like to ask you about craftspersons and artisans. How do you believe that the new generation architects or us, the future architects, could employ local craftspersons in architectural practices or features? How do we understand which resources are abundant, which arts are dying, which communities can be uplifted and empowered by our design vision?
Okay, so I don't actually have a formula like that. I also don't. I'm not supporting all these crafts. All the crafts that you see involved in my buildings. It's not actually in my case. It's not out of. I'm not in a patronizing role, or I don't feel like how do I save this dying pottery art and get the potters to make those pots, and those roofs. For me, it's not. I'm not such a nostalgic person in that sense that I don't want to revive. Like if we don't use those pots anymore, I'm not personally, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the potter having a skill. And just because we are not using the pot, then that suddenly that potter, like when you go from using clay pot, which we used to use in terracotta, now we are going to use metalware, because there's so many reasons why a metalware, or other ceramic industrial products that are now available. So you don't want your pots to break or whatever it is, it's a thing that will not, it may need to be transformed, or certain building technologies, if they are very natural and local. Suppose I do a mud building and I still know how to do it, but today if I'm going to limit the project to the technology, that I cannot build a 15-story buildings perhaps in that way. So the tendency to just glorify just something because it's dying out is not something I had. But what I do care about is the human expertise that is dying out. So if the potter, who it took generations to create that skill, so if I don't directly drink out of a ceramic cup anymore, I'm more concerned about saving the skill, and let's put it this way, I'm more concerned about the potter than the pot that they made. I want the potter to be able to contribute through all the knowledge and skill that they have developed, all this with all the ancestors before them, that it doesn't just go away somewhere. So you don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. So that is the thing. That is my approach. And it's like looking at the future. How can each one contribute to a more meaningful future? And very high skilled people are sitting there, and you go to a place and you have to get a Singapore company to take up a contract and put up those towers. And we have all these various hands. We have a huge population. There's so many people. It's like how I have called it the Starbucksification, of anything almost, including architecture. Starbucks will get mad at me, but if you go to Italy, you get an espresso for 50 cents. And if you go to Starbucks, you will get it for 3 or 4 or 5 euros. And yet and the same guys are going to be made to work. The same people who know the espresso are going to now be hired by the Starbucks company. And everybody who's benefiting, the people are paying more for it. That guy knows a lot about the coffee, and he knows you're the neighborhood guy who went every day there, but he's not allowed to give you adapt the coffee to you, like have a little chat. I know that she likes it without milk, he likes it like this, because somebody will give them the orders far away. So this is not often it's not a problem. I would like to tell you, that I don't think everything is a problem only on the level that you see it. I think there is a larger, if you're not thinking for yourself, you become part of a large supply chain trend, and you think you're making a micro decision to go to the Starbucks or to go to the cafe, but if all of you do it, then you're creating a very different movement, and then that guy is going to be wiped out, and all his knowledge will be wiped out. And the same thing is happening in the building industry. A lot of craftsmen know a lot of things, but when we give out very large contracts and we make so many conditions about who can build, what they can deliver, then we are in effect outsourcing. We will have to get people to come from far away to build. So you talked about abundance. What in abundance? I think instead of coming up with what manufacturers catalogs are saying, these are the new products and now we have to order. It's like you order food from all the menus that somebody gave in your post box, You don't have to do that. You can also do it the other way. The way I do it is wherever the place is, I just go there and see what do we have a lot of. If there's a lot of earth, we build with earth. If there's a lot of bamboo, you build with bamboo. But if there is a lot of people, you build with those people. You see what is there ample of. If you do that, you will create abundance. And if you try to be very stubborn and use some kind of idea of a building which you saw in renderings or in other companies or other places in the world, and they look very, very seductive, and you want to do that, then you will be in effect producing, you will create shortage, because that will cost a lot of money, that all those materials don't exist there. You'll bring it from somewhere. People won't know how to do it. I think that's why you create shortage. You see every other species are building their own homes and going forward. Our things are getting more and more outsourced. Even in the Western world, and we are still so colonized, I would say, in our minds, that we are following everything that is coming from there still. For example, they've gone through mainstream industrialization and they've standardized all kinds of things. Okay. And we are looking up, we are not mainstream industrialized yet. Okay. And now what has happened? Look at the clothes. What they do, they have S, M, and L. Okay. You cannot just go to the tailor. It's just not the thing. It's a very exceptional thing. Even wedding clothes, they don't do it. So imagine. So SML, and so every person by now, 2-3 generations using SML, they start feeling something. They have body shaming problems. There's all these issues because your body is not, nobody's body fits in that. They never think, did we over standardize it? Should there have been 5 sizes at least? Or should there have been combinations that up can be S, down can be M, L? There is nothing, somebody did over standardized. And now the whole people are like, the whole generation is growing up thinking something is wrong with their bodies, and they're trying to adapt their body to fit into what somebody made. You see what I'm saying? So we are not valuing our, we grew up, at least I got to grow up without that. So we had to go and take the cloth, go and get it stitched. But we didn't judge ourselves because there was a tailor who could not deliver 1 million shirts, but he could make my dress fit. And we are not valuing that. I so much value that. I think to give personal care is so luxurious. And yet we are trying to go in a direction which is only making us poor, I would say. That's my feeling. Poor, I mean, not only economically, I mean holistically.
Yes, because the shift that you brought in the question from looking at it from the arts perspective to looking at it from a skill perspective, it no longer remains a matter of aesthetics, but it now becomes about people and human resourcefulness. And that shift actually, kind of makes more sense to discuss. I have a question from Abhishek Datta here. It's Architect AD is what I see. So Abhishek, I think it is you. I'm asking you to unmute if you can ask your question directly, or if you want, I can ask.
Hi, Anupama. Thank you so much
I
for this
appreciate-
enlightening talk. As always, you let us take note and learn a lot from you every time. I really love the concept of collaboration instead of competition, and I believe that in this over standardized world, this really can make it into a customized world that we all seek in our dreams. I just have a question that for a couple of maybe some years or decade perhaps, architecture seemed to be something which is a very well photographed 2D images made for publications. So do you think that the people like us who feel frustrated at times when we do not make a building who are standing out and shouting to seek attention and see that others doing maybe 2 or 3 good points in their building which are very well documented and photographed and shown and published, we sometimes feel frustrated in that part, that are we doing something wrong, that we are just making the design fit to the customer but not shout to the world and say, hey, I am here.
I
What is
think more than
Yeah.
that, because in the early projects I did, a lot of my work is not documented, because when I started 30 years ago, I used to find the photography cost was absurd compared to my fee often. And often we didn't have fees also. So there is a vanity aspect of our work, and there is an experiential aspect. So not every building that's photographed well, especially now that I'm in various juries, which I go around and I experience that, there's a lot of marketing in we are at an age, where, that of course we are aesthetic people, we want things to look good, but also there is a thing of authenticity, and the best is to have a combination of both. But most of all, I think each one should think for themselves what kind of practice they want to have. But I understand your concern, because it is very difficult. Many people told me, that in the first few years, I remember some very good magazines, international magazines, used to want to feature my work, and they would come and say, your architecture is great, but your pictures suck. So I tell them that, you are free to get it photographed if you want to publish it, because, you approached me and this is what I have, and I understand how difficult it is in this age of Instagram, that not everything we have is Instagrammably as seductive. And I really don't have an answer, but I think a lot of these values to become so externalized, I think we are picking all that up. It's not so much inherently, I think in India, the common man's perception of architecture is not so much like that still. I think it's a question of, I think if we stick to what you're good at, it's bound to go somewhere. We should not be waiting for such immediate gratification, immediate appreciation, immediately get an award. It's okay because why do we need someone else's validation in the whole, in the whole pursuit of too quickly validation of others? You give up your own talent sometimes. I think you should, even if nobody's photographs and does, I used to ask myself, is this good enough for me? Am I happy with that? In the end, you don't know whom you're pleasing, because there will be always somebody who hates it. What do you do?
That response,
very true. Like when we visited Bharat Bhavan and many of the Charles Courier's work, the finishes of the structure was not very good. But overall, if you look at the composition, now the focus on making everything, the finish is so perfect that every building looks like an airport or a showroom. So that's really
only when it's inaugurated, and after a few years not, right?
Absolutely.
It goes all downhill
Abhishek,
from the inauguration day.
That's a nice birthday gift for you.
Thank you.
And by the way, talking about birthday gifts, Geeta, 24th April is my birthday. Sorry, I didn't want to say it in public.
Fantastic. So
You
nice day
mentioned the
to
date.
nice day to have the ASR day for sure. Let's push for it.
No,
But Abhishek, if you're planning to get
Abhishek, it's your
photographed,
birthday.
Yeah,
it
thank
is.
you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and if you're planning to get photographed, today is the day. You're all clean shaven, I can see. Before the gray beard comes back.
Yeah.
Carry on, yes.
Thank you.
So since we are discussing about aesthetics and materials already, I have a question for you. You are sort of known to work with unskilled labor, train them, experiment with material, including like salvaged and waste materials. It is one way of empowering members of a society as well as upcycling and delaying the whole process and time that a resource takes to reach the landfill. So for youngsters like us who want to follow your path, what would your tips be to counter the challenges and stigma that come with using waste materials and unskilled labor?
As you know very well that I am not a very good advisor about how to conform to society. As you know very well, I'm not the one who can tell you about stigma because, I don't even, I'm not influenced. I never get discouraged by things like stigma, okay, personally. So I think when you said about working with unskilled labor and all, I also, these are all labels, nobody's unskilled actually. People have different skills, and the skills, only how do skills take place? If somebody does a thing, then they get the skill. So if you don't start doing, how will they get the skill also? That's the other thing. So I just see that when you go somewhere, that there are people, and the people nearby, it's more sensible to use and build things. I don't like my technology to alienate. So I have not just done, I try to strike a chord between who are around you, who should or to get employed or to be able to contribute. What do you have, like which materials do you have lying around in plenty, and what kind of people you have lying around sometimes without even work, and if there is some things, I think it's the most economical, makes most economical sense to make something out of nothing, right? So that's what I've usually done. And I tell you this thing about, you said skilled labor, these are all terms that, if you look at each of those words, it comes from the colonizers' language. What is unskilled? So demeaning, it's not like that, what I mean. Do you need a skill? Like, don't you need somebody to carry those bricks? You need somebody to do that, right? So would these people with skills want to go and do some of those jobs? It is also a skill, no? It's a willingness for everybody's needed, every work has to be done to achieve that. So I try to, on one hand, I try to see who are there. I mean, because see, many people think that I'm very kind of, in the beginning, in the early years, they used to tell me you're very idealistic. And they used to assume that if you're idealistic, you're not practical. But I'm very practical. On the contrary, I'm very, very practical. I want all my dreams to come true, So I'm very practical. But why am I thinking about people? I'm not like a saint, like who's trying to, save the souls of others or anything like that. I've got a building in mind. I've envisioned something. I want it to be made. I want it to become real on the ground. And for that, I know that I can't remain in the air myself. I am practical for that reason. I want it to happen. And all those people are part of that whole chain of events that have to unfold to take the idea from my mind to exist over there, And so all the people have to contribute. So suppose I use a technology that alienates the people, and it'll have to bring people from a particular company, bring a material from a particular place. It makes it so complicated. It becomes so willful to do architecture that way. it will make it so expensive. It make it, I become dependent on all those factors, and I'll be depending on all what I don't have. I'd rather depend on what is all around me and have good relationships with all of that, respectful relationships, and create the same excitement and enthusiasm that I have to do it, and they feel too. So it's not like I'm going and looking for the unskilled labor, and this word unskilled and all, I'm sure these are all things we've picked up from so from our history. And just one thing is, it's not that I'm stopping at innovation because somebody has not done a thing before, because that is my part, to envision, to change the design of things, because that makes sense for the future. I already think I am somebody, I am the ancestor of somebody. What I'm going to do tomorrow, today, will, one day we have to think of it in a large context of time, and see what we are contributing, what makes sense. And then the other people, that's where the training comes in. I'm learning I have a new idea, because if I have an idea where I think that a lot of steel can be saved if you do this filler slab like Laurie Baker had done, and I thought, oh, you can increase the depth, effective depth, then you will save even more steel. That's why I put the pots in there as a lost formwork. So if you have this idea, the reason you're doing it so that everybody saves at least 30% or 40% steel more than the other filler slab, or and then you feel it's a good cause, and all of us have to stretch towards it, and we all have to learn things. It's not that the unskilled labor is now coming and learning. We are all learning. Now, if I'm going to, I recently made something out of Tetra Pak, and I made a, a library of lost books pavilion in Barcelona out of discarded books. It's like a kind of umbrella, tree-like structures. So we all had to, even the engineers, we all had to learn. We have to expand the boundaries of our knowledge, and we all have to continuously do that for progressing. I hope that answers. Sorry, my answers are getting too long. Please stop.
No, moving away from westernization, as you said, is very critical. There's a question that we have from Pilumodi College of Architecture. Could the college please unmute and ask the question? It focuses on vernacular techniques. Pilumodi College, could you please unmute? Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi. Ma'am, actually, the question has been asked by a student that you can see, ma'am, in the question, the chat box I have written. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes,
I can't actually see my chat box.
Do you want me to read it out?
Yes, yes.
Ananya, yes. So they say that your innovative way of designing spaces using vernacular techniques is very insightful for us. So in view of the rising urban sprawl, how can we as young architects aspire to create spaces to accommodate this while trying to preserve the heritage and craftsmanship?
So, people have written things about vernacular and all that, but I don't actually feel if they have written, I don't know which thing you're referring to, but I have explained that I don't think of tradition and I don't think of vernacular in that way. Even tradition was evolving. It was not like a certain period was tradition and thereafter it is modern. It's not like that, right? In our times, we see things are evolving, but 100 years from now, all these kind of glass towers may look all like as if this was a tradition. It's never like that. I'm sure in those days, even if for recipes and all, they are always evolving by how it's used. So I have never done vernacular architecture for the sake of that, or, I'm not actually, as I said, I'm not really nostalgic. I just feel I have respect for the heritage, and I see what our forefathers have created. If you look at our stepped wells, you look at the quality, how we have our knowledge of geometry. I mean, if you look at Indian architecture and you look at the genius of how geometry has created order on a very large scale. But when you come from far away, you have simple forms. When you come closer, you have more and more ornamentation, so that there is texture. I mean, it's and every material, you know, the way, you know, the stone has been, you know, chiseled, and the crafts that have generated. Look, even how our jewelry, our saris, I mean, it's just shows the incredible mind, you know, the mathematical and the imaginative mind, you know. So it's fascinating, and I'm very, very proud to be you know, to have, you know, have this imprint in me of being growing up in India, to be able to be part of a large civilization and be always aware of what our forefathers already knew. Therefore, I think the biggest, my way of honoring that is that we don't do much worse than them, please, if not better. We cannot accept that. You know, I would rather try to keep up the standard and not just think that like a puppet repeating a roof detail. That roof detail is not going to help us. It may help us in some cases, if it's a low density project, if it's some, according to where it is. If I go to one area, you know, where there is no wood growing in the desert, and I put up a timber roof there, it's going to make no sense. And if I go to an area where, you know, and just, you know, where there is some, you know, of the material still, but the density is so high that I would be wasting land and there will be no place to grow food. So we can't do absurd things. We are thinking beings, you know. If they did the step 12, why I'm bringing up the step 12, okay? I'm speaking to all of us because, you know, here that we all can, I think, like the song Imagine, we can all say that, we can all agree that the step 12s are ingenious, okay, in the architecture. So this is actually an infrastructure that is being celebrated. It doesn't look like today our infrastructures and our highways and our flyovers just as a mere planning thing to just give somehow water to the people. It was a celebration. It is because a common infrastructure will bring people, all the people need it. It's the common ground. So everybody will come there. So starting with an infrastructure, it automatically becomes a public place. And then individuals will be carrying those heavy pots. And there are steps to stop, to meet each other, to talk. Individual scale is there. Collective scale is there. It's forever, these things. So we have so many, such amazing, you know, we have such an amazing heritage. It, I think, would so reduce ourselves if we have to apply, let's use the frieze detail from the Khajuraho temple. That's not what we are aiming, right? Our needs have changed. Our population is more. We have to manage actual issues. That's what architects do. We have to manage where we are today in society. What are the numbers? What are the socio-economic problems? What is needed? How to improve habitat? What is the human being today seeking? Today, we don't need so much office space. We are all digitally, using other methods of communication. So what do we need today, right now, and how to do it? What I take from my forefathers is the standard. I want to keep that standard. And they would be more proud of us if we supersede them.
Mm. True. The discourse that went from looking at architecture for all, or just going beyond economic and social and physical barriers. We also did talk a lot about how it is important to evolve, not just with respect to technology and materials, but also with our sense of justice. And that is where this whole discussion of architecture for all comes from. We do have poor infrastructure that doesn't allow persons with disability to function with dignity. We do have blight and affluence living side by side. And we have heard your thoughts on this in the videos that you shared before the session. So I think with this, we will conclude the segment on social responsibilities. But before moving on, jumping to the environmental responsibilities of an architect, let us have a quick rapid fire round. This is about
Oh my God.
responses. So you have to say what comes to your mind first, Anupam. It's just 4 things that we'll ask you about. You have to pick only one from the following. Okay, Auroville, Berlin, or Pune. Which city is the closest to your heart?
Auroville. Not today's Auroville. What Auroville could become. Today's Auroville not. Today, I would say Pune.
Pune.
I was born in Pune, so.
Yes. With respect to preferred technology, RCC or ferrocement?
Ferrocement.
Practice of pedagogy, where do you think you can make the most difference?
Research-oriented practice and practice-oriented teaching.
Very nice. High density, high rise, or high density, low rise? Low rise. What's your choice?
High density, high rise.
Oh, that was fun. I think the last question.
High density, low rise. Huh. I want some researchers to work with me on this project. I think our density, our population to land ratio has way, gone beyond what I think Charles Correa and B.V. Doshi have advocated in that kind of settlements. I would like to, I'm working on the numbers for it. And I'm in Auroville designing something for a prototype, which is not a tower, but high, because I think India doesn't have the choice right now. Because another thing which they may not have considered, or maybe they did, and still prefer low rise, high density, is that the more you spread, the cars are required or other transportation. And I think the future of India is to walk. That's why I want to connect with Geeta about walkable cities. And I think everything, if the first and foremost thing is compaction. Can we have the figures, how much land we are spending on roads? Does anyone even think it's outrageous for India, where we have this type of land ratio? You know, we are 1/6 of the world's population on only 2.4% of the world's land. No other country's model would work for us. Our population is so big. So we must see the human resource, and we cannot give up on land, you know, and the amount of land that goes into all the various roads and the number of tracks on a road, how many 6-way, etc. And parking, isn't it nonsense? And polluting, and it's only for the elite. Just check how much percentage have cars, and therefore all the others, how they cannot walk. It's so much cheaper to put up bicycle tracks. And that's what another thing, Pune, I remember those days of Pune, you know, where you could go everywhere by cycle.
Yes, the reason why we inserted that last question on density was to lead to a surprise for the audience. We're very pleased to announce that Anupama has partnered with ASICH and is curating a studio which follows the principles of blended learning and flipped classrooms for teams of students and faculty. We will float a form for application, and selected participants will be learning from Anupama online when she is in Germany, and offline in person at Auroville when she comes back in India. Would you like to reveal a bit more about the studio, Anupama?
I hesitate to say too much, you know, and if, you know, because we have to really work together to get the times slots right. Okay, so I don't like to do something if I can't be very deeply engaged one-to-one also, you know, with you all. So I get a lot of requests over the years to do studios in India, and I have not been able to give that. I have done a few. But I know that there are many, you know, when I've taught at Yale and Cornell and everything, we have very different kind of numbers. Okay. But I have, because I come from Bombay, I have an approach to numbers, that numbers do not discourage me from personal engagement. So I've created methods of studio teaching in my own studios, where I use the large numbers to go deeper into research. I don't make each person make their own site model and each one waste all the time. We research in groups on different aspects very deeply, and we keep the one-to-one time for design discussion. So I have some kind of methods I have developed over the years. And the reason I have actually accepted to create not just like a seminar or something, if I want to do something with you, I would like to offer a studio, like a full-blown proper studio. And I would like to also hear a little bit the interest from you. My ideas, I'm doing this as a personal offering to celebrate Roger Angers' 100 years, which is going to be in March 2023. And I have recently been asked to take up I'm the head of urban design for Auroville right now. And I would like, many people have the perception of Auroville and the perception of sustainability being like sprawling in green, and all that. But that's, to be very honest, I don't mind bursting the soap bubble that's not going to happen for India. If we care about our country and our land and our forests, we need to go compact. And the challenge is, how do we keep a human scale? The human scale won't change, right? We know how bad those kind of towers look. But all of you, I would like to invite you. I had the very good fortune to work with Roger Angers for about 17 years. While I had about that many years, I was collaborating on the planning part. And actually, Auroville was planned to be that prototype of a city that other cities could emulate. It was an idea of a walkable city. And right now, I think a lot of things that were planned in Auroville are actually relevant for India. And if Auroville or if India does not get its urban step right, then we are going to really ruin everything. So we do need other models for housing, where I want to question inside out co-housing. Do we only have to do 2 BHK, 3 BHK? Is this BHK is a way of living, is as the only way? There is another way, of living, which the future families and communities, like how you had joint family life, it's going to happen, but not within your nuclear family. The community will happen with others. And there are other ways to envision it from inside out to the program. And I would like to, I don't want to promise too much, because I would like to do it when I can receive you properly, as well. But I have an idea of a structure that I think we could have teams of, say, 5 from a school where they work together, and maybe a staff member can be part of that. And depending on which dimension they want to work on housing, whether it is green infrastructure or we're going to rethink water drastically, or energy, or co-housing itself, So we will take up all this, but definitely it has to be about high density model for India, high density housing that we can live with. And despite the density, we will have preserved the human scale. Roger Angers, I will give you a lot of, he built extensively in Paris. I have written about him. I'm writing a second book now on Roger Angers' visions for urbanism. His model is right now showing in MoMA that I facilitated to bring there. So I would like to, I benefited so much from my interaction with him. So I would like to, share some of that with you, if you want.
Anupama, what if there are young practicing professionals or working professionals wanting to be part of this?
I mean, see, all that is up to you, Geeta. I'm just going to be available for the content part,
Right.
I would like to do it as a,
because there could be some.
Sorry?
I was curious because there could be some practicing professionals who could benefit from it as well, and we could bring in that angle.
Yeah, I mean, it came up as a response to, our discussions with Sonam,
Yes,
and you. So, I mean, the framework and how that, whom you would like to invite. I think I think there's a huge interest because I keep getting myself many requests. So I thought I could, I have a way to sort of do, how groups work and have to listen few minutes to each other and be effective. There are some techniques we have gathered over time, and I would like to share some of those and structure something and create a sense of collaboration and not competition also, and work, look at each other's ideas, and we really inquire, because what can we offer for high density housing for India, and some of us will list and do the research of what are the unique problems to India, and what are the, the numbers and why. And eventually I would like to take those kind of discussions further. Maybe if it is successful, do further repetitions, or take the things, ideas further. Some of it could develop into research to find out some of the essential bylaws that are not relevant anymore, and creating a wrong kind of development. And maybe we can create a kind of movement little by little by just being connected. Geeta, you're good at that.
Sure, sure. We'll talk more on that for sure.
Right.
Yes, I think the gears have started shifting now, and we will see a lot of love and response from the audience as well. So do stay tuned to ASET and follow us and Anupama Kundoo on social media, to be amongst the first to hear about this announcement and participate in this one-of-a-kind initiative. Or, as Anupama said, we have not dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. So this is just a discussion on board, and we thought we could use this opportunity to, kind of like a curtain raiser of a concept or an idea that we have been brewing in the back end.
I think we should definitely there should be, opportunities, because if we are lots of us, we should, different schools could go and have, do site visit at different moments, and other people in our team will help to do that. But I would like eventually to have some interaction, or to be able to present the work, and somehow, to also maybe acknowledge some of the good work, and show it also, and so on. Eventually maybe do an exhibition, maybe. Geeta, let's see what you come up with. All right. So yeah,
Yes.
it's exciting. Let's see what we will all manage to pull off. Okay.
Yes. Moving back to the discussion, the last session of today's interaction focuses on our environmental responsibility. Anupama, what can you say about the westernization of architecture in India based on your global experiences? Your designs have been informed by traditional passive techniques, yet they are modern. In India, the question of sustainable building always stumbles upon our problem of plenty, our population. How do we design for all, the people and the ecosystem that we thrive in? So could you lay some basic light on this point so that we could move to the last question that we have on the board?
See, what I know about I can vouch for that in India we have all these modern trends are quite recent, that type of trends that you're talking about. So we actually already know how to have quite a good life with a lot less. We already know, I'm not proposing that Indians should continue with a pro capita less consumption than, and the others, Western world can consume more than 10 times of almost anything, including vegetables per capita. If you look at the state of the world figures, you will see. So, but there are many good practices that are already embedded in our life. When I go to India and people offer water, when you pour water, they'll say, no, stop. They don't fill the glass to waste it. If they are planning to drink a little habits like that strike me, that we are already actually in a very good space. In the Western part, they will have it, they will find it very difficult, because they have created a throwaway culture. They will find it very difficult to change their habits to just each and every person widespread. So they are doing a lot of education. That's the advantage, that they have They have the certain systems in place and policies that they can use to reduce their targets and so on. But what they are planning to reduce is still quite high compared to what we know how to do. And I think India can really inspire many other people about about how to live, and not to live, how to coexist with the environment and with each other also. What is not sustainable, I tell in the Western part when I speak, what is not sustainable is individualism. This is also what I say for Auroville. What is not sustainable is that if each one wants everything for themselves, this is actually the problem of sustainability. And in India, we still know how to be like that, collective minded. We don't need a policy to make us collective. We are attracted to each other and to do things together. So I think that I wouldn't say that it's a westernized kind of, what was the term you used again?
The westernization of architecture.
Yeah, I didn't really see it so much as that, but I think it's more like if we would develop our own self-esteem, collective self-esteem as a nation, even though we know how to do something better, we are still going and buying a thing. Like, for example, when you have fruit juice in India, it is pressed on the spot, right? Nobody will take it out of a fridge, right? But even I found, say, in Auroville or in many of the westernized, things that are coming up now, even though we have a widespread culture of having only fresh food, we are going for that, only because we don't value ourselves enough. And they are looking up to because they've, through the huge scale that, of widespread industrialization, some over standardization habits have taken place, which the rest of the world, the developed countries are struggling to unwind. But here we are still glorifying some of those. So I don't think that this is a colonization that they are, of course, doing through their marketing, but we are the buyers of that. So I don't know what to call it really. I think it's something like we are not valuing ourselves and our ideas. We know what works for us, and we still find that more superior what the West has to offer. So this is something that I detect as a problem. I think I would love to see, like, if you look at Japan, their modernity and their modernization, it is not a Western one. They modernize from inside themselves. They come out with their own way of managing their underground, their own. We always, if we want to do it, we go and look at some other model. I mean, and then there is that tendency to just directly copy as if our own creation would not be good enough. I think innovation should come from inside ourselves, from our needs.
Yes, I think in continuation to this response, there's a question from BMS College of Architecture. Shashank Nair, you have responded in the chat box. Can you please unmute yourself? Will it be the institute or Shashank who will have to be unmuted?
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
So one of the questions that one of the students had was, when do we stop designing? Because there are almost infinite iterations to design. We can keep going on. So when do we know when we should stop?
I didn't acoustically get you really.
Yeah, same here. We couldn't hear.
Can you just maybe speak a bit slowly, or I don't know, what can we do? Maybe there's a reverberation, or maybe speak closer to the computer. I don't know what is the...
Is this better, ma'am?
Yes, much better.
Yeah. So one of the questions was, when should we, how do we know when we should stop designing? Because there can be multiple iterations to a design and we can keep going on. So when do we know what is like when to stop?
I think you know. You always either stop because you run out of time, or you stop when you are satisfied. If you, I just remembered when you, but I love the question actually. And actually it never, I would say it never stops, when we go to the building site, and when it goes from 1 to 50 scale, then it goes to 1 to 2, 1 to 1, and then you make mock-ups, and you're actually always designing till, I think that on one level, that was my short answer. And the elaborated answer is, I think you only stop when the building is realized. Because there are always things that, you design a flooring, that material is not available. There is some errors to be adjusted on the site. So things evolve, and you till you realize actually you're doing design decisions. And sometimes a very small decision, because a certain material is not available or in that color, and then you have to do something else, and that decision will impact some other decision of the color of the wall, because now you're going for this. So everything keeps getting, I would say, design goes on till the end. And I want to give you an inspiring quote that I found very interesting about when Buckminster Fuller was asked whether he seeks beauty, because we keep on seeking an optimum resolution synthesis of all what we are trying. And he said that I don't start out looking for beauty. I don't look for beauty, but when I finish designing, if the result is not beautiful, then I know that the process is not finished.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
We have one more question from the audience, and it came as a personal question. So it is a little, how do you say, a little depressing to read it out. So instead, what I would do is I'll ask Arushi to ask the question. This is about the future of architecture and the future of young architects in our country. The student is a little worried after completing the 5 years of architecture that she doesn't see a future for herself or himself in it. So we are reframing the question, and Arushi, you can ask the question to Anupam.
Yep. So the question is, you once said every action you do or don't do makes you who you are. Your entire architectural career has surely been affected by your humble existence in Auroville, the people you met and the lessons you learned. What do you believe would have occurred if you wouldn't have visited Auroville? Can you advise our students on how important making the right choice at the right time creates the right possibilities?
Yeah, I think to give this answer, I have to be a guru or something, which I'm not. But I can only say that, what would I be if I didn't? I totally resonate with the question. Okay, I have to say there is a depression, or there is a kind of a, when you feel depressed is because I've been through that. Okay. And I've been through it not only one time, many cycles. You spiral and you come to that point. And when you feel that you're not convinced about anything, and there is a dismal feeling, I would say that it means that is not actually a bad state. It's a great state, because you, at least it shows that you are like that child in the emperor's new clothes, who's actually, all the others are lying. Just because thousands of people tell something, it doesn't mean they are right. The truth is the truth. And something in your deep soul is not convinced that this is how the world ought to be, or this is a thing that you don't feel like being part of. It's a very, very deep and very honest recognition that you are taking. So I think that is a very good thing. It shows that if you would have not had the depth to understand that somewhere your being is rejecting, strongly rejecting a certain trend. Okay. And you don't identify with that. You don't find yourself to be part of it. Okay. And therefore you feel, oh, what will I do? You feel alone. And then you feel like, oh, how do I fit in? So believe me, I've not only gone through it once, even often I go through that again and again. So yes, Auroville came to me in my life and a response to that. But the thing is, I went to Auroville. And there are many people who go to, you make that opportunity into what it can be. I am equally shaped by Bombay actually, and Pune, as you know. But even now when I'm here, it's not that everything is like, it's not like in Auroville, I was suddenly living happily ever after with everyone. If you are feeling isolated because you feel you're fighting some, you have an aspiration and you feel it's not a collective aspiration, that's why you feel little depressed. But I would like to tell you, in fact, it is a collective aspiration, but others are not saying it. That's why I'm saying the emperor's new clothes. You are not alone. This is the first thing. You're not alone. And you are so ahead of everyone else that you have recognized it so early in your life. That I had that big advantage that I also felt. And that what did I do? I didn't want to work in offices and places where I didn't feel right. It looked arrogant, but it was not arrogant. I just felt that if I'm there or not there, it doesn't matter in that kind of practice. So I don't want to do that. It's out of my respect for the human potential that not only for me, that I didn't want to succumb. So I didn't know where I would go, and I lived quite difficult days. But we Bengalis, we have that song of Tagore. Jodi to dak shune kyo na ashe, tabe akla chalo. And we are going to be born alone, we are going to die alone, and let's get used to being that we are actually alone without the illusion. And suddenly you will find all these alignments, and then all the others who are bravely accepting their being alone, suddenly you see you have so many people, not your family, not the people who shun you, not the society who judge you. Those who are in that trap because they got a little praise, they are in the trap. They are constantly pleasing this one, that one. They please 5 people there, 200 people are offended. With every project in the news, there will be criticism. I also get, not so much actually, but we get. But if your life is constructed out of that, you will live in this doom. It's great that you have put the point there. And this is a thing you will face all your life.
I'd
But
like to just step in
you will
here.
feel
Yeah,
good.
after you. I'm sorry, Anupama.
No, Geeta. I just want to end by saying, you know what? I'm so sorry to tell you the bad news first, that this feeling will come and haunt you from time to time. And the good news is that it's not a bad thing. It's a moment of truth. And you will see you are born, nothing is going to happen. You are going to be just fine. You will wait because you'll reject all the things. You will do with conviction. And the more you find your conviction, you will start doing and you will make something out of nothing. I'm not worried about you. You can text me if you want.
So this is something that I'd like to also share from my own experience. I'm glad Anupama talked about trying to work in different places and not doing it, because for me also I did try working with many offices, and not being comfortable with myself is something I could not deal with. So I said, no, this is not me, and I actually responded to an advertisement for a creative educationist in slums. And I said, it's okay if architecture doesn't happen, I'll do what I enjoy doing. And that's something I applied for with this NGO, and they needed an architect, and I went on board as a shelter coordinator in slums and so on. And life took its course. And I think working with Avas and with Anita Reddy did give me a different dimension completely to how I could see life. And again, someone may ask you, what if you hadn't responded to that advertisement? And I think ethos happened thanks to that, because I was in that space where I needed to make a decision, and I made a choice. Again, the choice was not made by choice; it happened by chance, in a sense, right? Because that option came in front of me. And if I had not had that option, would ethos have not happened? Would I have not done what I did? I think I'm very clear that I would maybe ethos would not have happened, but something else that I wanted would certainly have happened. So it's how you make that path for yourself, how you discover yourself. And I think, like Anupama said, there are going to be times, often in our life, where you're unsure about what you're doing. And I think it's a beautiful thing to go back and keep asking yourself, is this where you want to be? Is this where you want to head? And if it's not, there's always time when you're 20, 30, 40, 50 to keep pivoting. And I've done that at 50. Thanks to a conversation with multiple people, I realized that there are things that I want to dive into. So yeah, I think it's a good place. That feeling of dissatisfaction and uncertainty is a fantastic place to be in to make something of your life.
And one thing more I would add, don't compare with others.
Right.
Everyone, it looks like everybody who's not maybe complaining, or they are saying, oh, how happy they are. They're often just telling it to themselves,
Right.
to reassure them to go on doing some bad jobs. Many times I found in those days, and I feel this is a great moment of truth where you have the chance to be aligning your action to your soul, because somewhere in your soul you're rejecting certain things. So it's a very good thing. And when you don't fret about it, and just 1 or 2 days, 1 week at least, you can stay with the thought. Nothing will happen. If you don't have food and you don't have a job, and I literally was like, I had to foot my bills and everything. I was living very early on my own that way. So you realize nothing happens. You can at least 1 week you tell yourself, don't worry. 1 week, anybody can pass the time. But in that week, you just start feeling and don't feel uncomfortable with this thought that it's a bad thought or it's a depressive thought. Just think it's so good that something inner thing, is, like the Buddha moment when he says, okay, what is all this suffering for? Let me look at it. So you just look at it, and you will see that kind of things which are aligned with you. The moment you take an action to reject that, you're not going to habitually participate in doing opposite of what your soul is calling. So don't do anything. And in the not doing anything, that is the first courage. Then automatically you will see people will phone you. You will have a different vibe, and those kind of people will be in your world.
And
There's a whole other world.
And since there are so many college faculty and maybe heads here as well, I think that's something that I would advise that you encourage this search in your students. And I think it's also important for students to realize that everyone doesn't need to be designing. And more importantly, designing all the time. Anupama is not designing all the time. I am not designing at all. So, but we found our place and our space and our
and we are still evolving, no, Geeta? I mean, like, look, you all have an idea perhaps about me living like Mowgli happily ever after in the Jungle Book of Auroville, but that is not my life, really. I was it's not, no place is without its issues, and there is a planned city. There are people not necessarily wanting that, and and there's going to be all of that. And there is a reason. See, I'm not there now, but I'm again called back to do something there. So we are evolving. Then I became a professor later. I never thought, if you would have asked me when I started out, I would never want to be a professor. I would say, why would I want to be a professor? And I was very studious, so I wanted to study more, but I didn't. And now I found myself in this situation. I write books like Gita. I take a lot of interest in other things. I'm very interested in so many subjects, and you will see architecture is a beautiful base to think holistically about so many subjects. And I just, whenever you get this moment, tell yourself it's a great moment of revelation. Listen carefully to your soul and don't worry.
Yes, like you pointed out about life, I think a few colleges and students have questions about diametrically opposite decisions and choices that you need to make in design. Faculty at Shri Shri University, could you please unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, firstly, it was very insightful to learn about your concept of how you use local materials and local expertise for using abundance, as you said. Now, in your project, we'd actually want you to show more of your projects. In the project of Town Hall, you've used so-called industrial materials. And I'm sure you had a way by which you met midway or created a sustainable thing. So could you talk a bit about that? It's a fantastic building, in my opinion.
I'm not, it's not me, it's the religious people, religious sustainabilists there, sustainabilists who call me. They say that you are for sustainability, why are you using concrete and things like that. I have not only that, I've done one building which is only concrete, 100% exposed concrete. So it's not like I don't think sustainability is like, you know, check boxing, you know, checklisting this and that. And I think it's not the materials themselves that are good and bad. It's like a polarized, it's like a religious approach to saying, you know, mud versus cement in a very simplistic way. So I think every material comes from the ground and it has properties. They are not good and bad. They were there already. Now, the only difference is, like you brought up about cement or concrete, is that humans, the manufactured materials are made by mixing 2 or 3 different materials, which also come from the earth. We put in a lot of fuel and to increase the properties so that it can be durable or it can withstand certain things. So, like brick also, brick is no less, it needs 980 degrees temperature. But does the brick building is, the brick is forever, you know, 3,800 years old and it's still going on. The bricks are still fine. But for me, the problem of sustainability is not, it is the problem of scale and where you use what. The brick, industrial brick, they go and make big quarries, they, you know, take the coal out of somewhere. The local Indian brick, the kacha brick, which we call, not kacha, sorry, the non-wire cut, what is it called? The normal ground molded bricks, you know. What they do is that the clay collects, even wherever we go in the countryside, you see brick piles here and there being made. They are not fired in kilns. They are fired in temporary structures where the brick pile itself is the outer layer is insulated with mud, plaster, etc. You take whatever bio waste, coconut shells, whatever you have, and you fire. It's a different from doing coal. Coal is also used by some, but what I mean is that it's a very subjective thing. In the South India areas that I have seen, after the monsoon, the clay collects, and the people of that place, who are also rice farmers, they're doing many other things. They're not just brick makers. They'll also know how to make bricks. They will make the brick from that season, and after the firing and using the brick, that land looks like normal again. Next year again, clay will collect. So I feel again it's the Western, not Western actually, I would like to say post-industrial standardized box pigeonhole thinking, which makes us feel that brick is bad. Brick, all the green rating systems is about how many kilojoules does brick take. But have we seen the qualitative thing, whether I'm using coal or I'm using coconut shell, or whether I'm spending this much clay in this size or making a big quarry somewhere? Isn't that the issue? For me, that's the issue. And the point is also, like, see, for example, if you eat a tuna fish because you caught it, or you went with a little boat and got a bit for you and your village, as opposed to killing all the tuna for 10 years in advance and canning it in that thing because you've got a tuna fish company. This is the point. So and we are having very superficial discussions. Is tuna good or bad? Or is brick good or bad? You know, I don't like this discussion, you know, and therefore I think every material deserves research, and cement and concrete, which are high energy materials, deserve even more attention by those who care about sustainability to significantly reduce the impact of those. Because how are we going to navigate COVID without plastic, and climate change without cement and waterproofness, you know? But we, just because cement and concrete can happen, should we therefore make every park bench out of concrete? Perhaps not. So, and then if I have used, like in that building, not the town hall, but the other building that is purely concrete, I used 100 and the first design was 125 cubic meters of concrete, and I did many iterations to make the engineering less. I made the span less by leaning the column. I did ferro cement, loss shuttering to build more, you know, shapes, efficient concrete, and waffle slabs and all of those things. And I brought it down to 75. I saved 50 cubic meters of concrete. So for me, that concrete building is a sustainable building, because in that use, the best I could do was to have a permanent institutional building that will give security to that place and to, you know, be a solid thing. So for the town hall, will I be guilty if I use concrete? Of course not. I have done enough, you know, I want to use judiciously. To stand foolishly use concrete everywhere is as foolish as to oppressively use man-made techniques where you will be sprawling. So everything, if you apply in a mass level without thinking, could be foolish. So I personally don't have an issue with any material. I like to do the numbers and do the math.
There are multiple possibilities in architecture, and talking about these possibilities, I think Ethos has also aimed at becoming the wind beneath the wings of the student fraternity through its outside the classroom initiatives, be it through challenges like the Nippon Paints Asia Young Designers Award, Cape Record's Design Advance Challenge, IGBC Green Design Challenge, Roka's One Day Design Challenge. The avenues to step out of the comforts of the cocoon of your college and to explore design intelligence on a national and international level has been offered by Ethos. Do check out ethosempowers.com for latest competition and courses in the field of architecture. We can take a few more questions from the audience. Can I request Mr. Chirag from MITS, Chirag Makija, to please unmute himself for his question?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes. Hi, Chirag.
Hello. Ma'am, in the earlier session, you said that there's a more of a caste system or what a level system that what the architect is saying, the labor or the lower one has to do that. But you prefer the system when everyone is like, they can express their ideas. You told that knowledge has no level. But ma'am, if I'm being an architect, I'm designing something, I have some ambitions for that. For that should go in my way. If I'm like that, everyone should be like har koi aake, like
No,
whatever
no.
they have in mind, they gotta doing that. So ma'am, the result from what I've thought and what it's gonna come, like, doesn't it have a very huge difference?
Chirag, I love your question. And I'm so glad you're giving me the opportunity to clarify that I don't mean that, what you just said. That would be such a nightmare. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, you know, that everybody starts designing and doing each other's job. I'm not saying that, okay? I have the good chance to clarify. I'm just saying that when I talk about respect, I'm talking about respecting that the other is equally intelligent and that their hands are not just making like machines, you know, they are also thinking hands. I'm talking about allowing that other, not creating intimidation on the site. That many times architects who don't have experience, many times, Chirag, they go to the site and they will argue with the contractor or the brick mason. But if they don't know if they don't listen and they don't know the difficulty, sometimes we don't realize that we give some bookish solution to something. And if we don't allow the dialogue, we will go away thinking we were right. And sometimes we are right, sometimes they are right. Sometimes there are things they know. And if we would have the chance to listen, we would be able to have considered it and then include or not include. I'm not saying that everyone should come and do everything. Okay. I'm not saying that there is no architect. I specifically explain again the idea that I said there is a choreographer, but if I do not have a give and take with the violin player, or, you know, I have suddenly a singer who can sing in this range and I don't use that expertise, or I assume that I've got a fixed thing and then I come and I find somebody to fit in that. That is possible to do, but often it happens that due to the position and power and also due to this class, system type habits, sometimes we are not so approachable. But in my site, I found that sometimes people would say, I have this idea. If you're trying to save this and I'm doing an experiment, I'm doing a prototype, then they'll come and tell me that, are you trying to do this? Because then that could also have been done. And then I say, okay, can you build that mock-up also? Tomorrow we'll do two and then I'll compare. That's what I'm saying, okay? So Chirag, I really like what you have said. Actually, I do believe that I'm talking about collaboration and not thinking that we are only in the head of the pyramid, but in the authorship we are. I'm not denying that role at all. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be such a sealed boundary that we just give the order and someone has to do. And there are things we have that it's good to, imagine though their hands were our own. You will be modifying, no, while you're making a model, something comes and you change. So if through someone else's work, and if you feel you are part of them, they are part of you, then genuinely you will be able to see areas that you could expand a lot. That's what I was saying.
Thank you for the response and that clarification. Dia Jain has a question. Dia, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, can you?
Okay. Good evening, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am, and Anupama, ma'am. The question was, as an architect, should we tap into resources of graphic designing and fashion designing, or the new AR VR technologies, or we should stick more to design or structural related innovations?
I think since architecture is really, it's a synthesis of everything. I think we can and we should take advantage of also. Not for me, it's not only design of visual communication and everything that inspires me. I also go a lot to the art museums, and artists' work also inspire me, as much as other philosophers. They reveal things that are going on in the present time that can help us to expand ourselves. And regarding tools also, like there are tools, there's so many digital tools coming in. I just feel that the problem is when we do either or. If you give up the analog when there's digital, then it's a problem, because if you have not experienced something, you don't know in the mind. If you have an experience, if you back it up with being more embedded or connected to the ground reality, then everything that you do only theoretical and mental will automatically connect with reality. But if you remain in bubbles, I think then it's a problem. But otherwise, I would say every aspect, because architecture involves the sciences, the arts, the knowledge about the human being, the knowledge about societies and policies and bylaws and finances, economy, everything. I think there's no end to what all we could. I would not start just going with a formula. Like if I have a project that I feel I can take inspiration from any other thing, or knowledge in another field is required in the project I'm doing, then I think the questions that we have is the important thing. The question leads us to sometimes other fields to look at. I wouldn't subscribe any of that as a general strategy to do before we start practicing. But be open when you practice that every project in architecture is a custom-made thing. So it's unique and it will raise unique questions, and you can find your answers from anywhere, from life itself and from other disciplines too.
Thank you, Anupama. We have a question from BMS College of Architecture, which is like a universal question. Every architecture student will have it. And after this, we will have a technical question that has come in from PDSS College of Architecture. So BMS, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Shruti, and I'm basically in my 6th semester. And while we're going through like our different design project, there is a constant question about what is the importance of having a strong concept, like outside of just the functionality of a building, and even like beyond how it feels to walk through a building. Often there is a question about what is your concept. So what is the importance of it? And is it really in the real world?
You're going to hear this from me too. I'm going to ask in our for a studio always this question. So yes, so you're saying what is the important, or you're saying why do you have to have a concept?
Yeah.
Because if we don't know what you're trying, then we don't know how to help you. So first of all, you have to know for yourself, because if I know what I'm aiming, see, for example, let's take a house, and if let's take a simple house. Okay, if we have this, let's say it's a artist in residence. Right now in my first year students I'm teaching them why exactly this question, why do you have to have a concept? So they are doing an artist in residence. Okay, so I want them to tell me, first of all, in order to form a concept, I ask them to give me 4 separate questions, answers to probe 4 things, and then find their concept. Okay, so I tell them, we have studied the site. What is your response to the site? What is your concept to the site, to the place? Towards the place, what are you going to do? Some people will say, we want to open up to this beautiful waterfront. Some people will say that there are too many tourists in the waterfront. I want to be introverted. So that's one aspect of a concept you catch, because the rest of your decisions, both the introverted house and an extroverted house can be a fantastic house. But you cannot make some decisions based on introverted and some other decision based on extroverted, because the user also will be confused. The no side will be private. There will be many problems. So you must know at least for whichever of, what for your basic concept, what at least one type of people will be able to enjoy that house if you remain consistent. So this is one thing. So the second thing I ask them is, I tell them first to instead of not coming up with blah blah and jargon to have a concept at all costs, I tell them to find 4 sheets. I ask them to do. One is your response to the site. The second is I make them do the bubble diagram. What is your concept to space? What is your spatial concept? And which room is next to which room, when you organize the flow of the distribution of your spaces, then you know what is your movement that is implied. So then you know if you have passages or not, or how your staircases everywhere. The circulation goes hand in hand with the spatial concept. So I ask, what is your spatial concept? Do you want to have separate rooms? Is your dining to be with the kitchen, or rather a separate dining room with the living? This type of thing. So they have to come up with a response to that. The third is, what is your response? What is your climatic response? How are you planning to do that? Are you going to have a large umbrella like roof, or are you going to have this type of windows, which whatever? What is your strategy? So that, and then the material and technologies. Which material are you choosing to build it from? What is your response to materiality? And that will unfold into the same material, like I take stone. It could be an arch, or it could be a slab construction, or it could be a facing. So the choice of material, the choice of structural system, and automatically the building technology. Is it machine made, handmade, whatever? Everything could change. So the material question. So when you have a concept, first try to hear their voice on their concept to those 4 things. And then I ask them, what is the synthesis of these 4 sheets? Where is the central concept of this specific house? Any building will have a climatic response or a material thing, but this is an artist in residence for a specific experience to produce work there, show things, and it has to do with that spot. So then you bring out a central concept. Was that clear? Or
I think that was, because concept is to a design what hypothesis is to research. It kind of becomes that starting point that leads you in different directions. We have a technical question that has come in from PDSS School of Architecture. Reshma Parveen, can you please unmute yourself? This is in fact from all the questions we received, which were all philosophical, let's say, versus the only practical one. Yes, Reshma.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
This is
afternoon.
Professor in PDSS School of Architecture, and these are my children's over here, like mix of all studios, like second year, third year, and fourth year. As I'm dealing with the design studio of 8th semester, as we are dealing on an urban design level. So as you just now discussed regarding the site context, so even we have taken the students to the sites where the problems are there. Say it might be a parking problem, or it might have a potential to grow with some historical importance, or to bring an awareness regarding an historical importance, or it might be some of the facilities which are missing towards that housing complexes. So so we have designed so many, we have come out with so much of program output, we are designing, say, intact centers, and we are designing some heritage hubs where we are giving some information regarding our heritage, because we belong to in Gulbarga, we are placed in Gulbarga, so we have a history of Bahmani dynasty. We wanted to create that awareness, because some of the structures are still not in the list of ASI. So we started to bring these kind of live projects with the students. So I just wanted to know what kind of interventions still can happen towards this end, ma'am, this kind of studio works.
I'm not very sure exactly about the question, ma'am. I understand what you're.
No, we are doing it like finding out the potential of the site and trying to solve the problems or the ground issues which are there. So we are trying to frame the program from the students' end, and then we are doing some visual surveys to that, and trying to resolve the problems, and trying to come up with a solution to those problems on the particular site area which we have selected. So what will be your some of the takes to take the studio on, or uplift these kind of studios, or what all can be the interventions?
I think for urban design, it's very good if the studio students can interact with not only the site theoretically, but if they can actually show the work to the people who can actually implement change. Especially in India, there's urban design is often not being commissioned, and therefore a lot of architects are not able to come up with something more coherent. So I think it would be a good idea that to get the people who are responsible in the place to have a direct interaction with you, and that the students can present the work and take a feedback, but they can also gain and apply some of that. And I think it seems to be a very thorough work that you're doing. So I think it would be great to take the same studio over many semesters instead of giving up, because urban design takes time. And if every semester, if it's the Gulbarga studio, that the next batch comes and you create a relationship maybe with the people who have the power to maybe implement really, and you really can become a stable, long lasting relationship where more ideas are generated and the students get to contribute to a place. I think it seems like why would somebody not try to apply that, And when you know somebody is wanting to apply some of your ideas, you will listen closely to what problems they have identified. The municipalities and on the city level. And if I think you should work, I would love to imagine that it is possible that they actually apply that.
Yeah, ma'am. We are trying to do that.
I hope that
because I am a city planner from IIT Kharagpur. Even we have taken some of junction designs in our planning studio. So with these junction designs, we are approaching even the superintendent of police and even the traffic administration to make it as a social contribution from our institution.
Are you already doing that? Are you already
We have
applying?
done once, ma'am. We are trying to do it once again.
Yeah, I
We
think
have done
I
already
think
once.
it's good. Yeah, it may be what I found when I'm doing urban design studios is that that I wish sometimes to have the continuity, to have the same studio every, for urban design, because it's a pity by the time you get to know the people and all that, it will be a continuous work and different aspects will unfold.
Yes.
The place can remain the
Yes.
same so that you keep building on the work and relationships, hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your knowledgeable input. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And even
also.
thank you, Geeta, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. This is truly has been a wonderful session. A lot was discussed today, things you may not apply right now or ponder on right away, but will surely ruminate, and it will keep on coming back to you as and how you face those situations that you need to apply this knowledge in. In the closing, I would like to thank all of you for being here. Thank you, Anupama, for reinstating that learning is lifelong and not confined in the duration of schooling. You continue to learn, you continue to evolve, you continue to explore. Thank you, NASA India and Arushi, for your support. Thank you to our audience for making this engagement a success. To the students and teachers and learners and mentors, to colleges who took this up in full swing. Can the colleges please switch on their videos so that Anupama can see all the institutes: BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore; Pillu Modi College of Architecture; PDSS School of Architecture; Sri Sri University of University and College of Architecture; Accurate Institute of Management and Technology; BNCA College Pune; Devbhoomi Uttarakhand University; ITM University Gwalior; Manipal University Jaipur; Puja Dr. Shiv Kumar Swami School of Architecture, Karnataka; Siddhaganga Institute of Technology, Tumkuru; Vaishnavi School of Architecture and Planning; SAL School of Architecture, Gujarat; D.Y. Patil School of Architecture, Lohegaon; and Purnima University in Jaipur. Some students have seen it as a broadcast and some have viewed it from their individual boards. We hope that this has inspired you to continue making socially and environmentally responsible briefs an intrinsic part of your design and the pedagogical process, as well as the design that comes from the student's end. Do check out, as a last message, I would like to say, do check out our lecture on thumb rules for parking on Tuesday. It's a short lecture with a case study approach, and the link will be pasted by Sudhanva on the box.
First of all, I really want to also say that when you switch on your cameras and I'm seeing the overwhelming, numbers of people here connected here, it's really, really.
So Anupama, it was twice this number a little while ago. So we had a much larger number. So I'm saying we actually touched 325 live participants. So it's a real record that you've set.
But so many participants are like complete, groups and institutions.
Yes.
That's what I was seeing. It's overwhelming to see that that we could have this kind of a large exchange. It is incredible. I think it's been the most memorable sort of, I was telling Sonam and also Geeta that, I don't fear the numbers. I think it's a thing to celebrate. And I think that's the strength of India. I think it's just really overwhelming. Thank you so much for the interaction. And I hope we can stay in touch through Instagram or, have some little chats here and there and text exchanges.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And we look forward to the course. We'll look and plan. I'm excited about planning that with Sonam and getting back to you. So we'll be in touch.
Yes.
And last but not the least, I would also like to thank the awesome team at Ethos who ensure that every event leaves a charm. Sudhanva and Sejal for being the rocks of SNS and ASEJ, Rasya, Aishwarya, Anushri for the art cause direction, Priyanka, Radhika, Nikita, Rasya for staying on backup because the show must go on. And lastly, to Geeta Balakrishnan for the love and inspiration.
And Sonam, would it be possible, because I couldn't read all the chat, I think there's some very, very beautiful questions that we couldn't take up. Could be nice to, if we could get the chat. I don't know how that works technically, does it?
We'll send the transcript to you, Anu, and you can respond and we can share the responses with the
yeah, person. Lovely.
As a response on the Facebook live, we will do that and tag everybody.
Okay. So everybody have a nice weekend.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Adios, amigos. So ponder on the deliberations we had today and be the difference. Bye-bye.
Bye.